Thank you, Shelley. I'm a big fan of Mununggurr, by the way. I'm sorry the show's not continuing. But anyway, my name's J. Martin Judd, CEO of the Northern Land Council. It's nice to see a lot of friends out there and some foes. But it's always interesting being in this sort of crowd. I've already been bailed up about 3 times since I've been here. But before I get into the speech, I'd like to acknowledge some of my bosses, actually, who are on the Northern Land Council. In the front here is Yunnamal, one of my mentors over the years, and Chairman Sammy Bush-Blanazi, who's sitting up the back there, and executive members Jawa Yunupingu. Thank you to the Yotha Yindi Foundation for the opportunity to speak here. And also want to acknowledge Brian Pedwell from the VRD. Brian's also the mayor of the Shire down there. And Chris Need from Elliot. And of course I can't forget, Joy Cadona. I hope she's here somewhere. There you are. Good to see you, Cass. And all of the other Northern Land Council members and staff. It's fantastic to see you out here, and thanks to Denise Bowden for the hard work you do in bringing the festival back after serious COVID times. We are about to enter into even more exciting times of economic development on Aboriginal land. In the NLC region alone, we are already seeing innovative development. You would have heard about the Aboriginal mining operations just across the road over here with the Gulkula Mining Company. There's a space industry, of course. We were lucky enough to be here to see the first launch by ELA. The proposal for the world's largest solar energy network, which will be down near Councillor Need's country, down near Elliot, south of Elliot, and that'll go. There's a proposal to take a cable to Singapore. So that's the sort of scale we're talking about. And then, of course, I'm going to be touching on the Aboriginal management and control of NT coastal waters. This year, the Northern Territory Aboriginal Investment Corporation was established. This means that for the first time, Aboriginal people have control over grants from the Aboriginal Benefits Account, which is in the Aboriginal Land Rights Act. And prior to now, that account was always controlled by the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, for better or for worse. We had some appalling decisions made by ministers, but thank God that control's coming away from them. So despite COVID, the future is looking bright. Next year is the 50th anniversary of the Northern Land Council, and I just want to acknowledge that people like Jared Brennan sadly passed away recently, former High Court judge, famously associated with the Mabo decision. In the early days was a lawyer at the Northern Land Council, and so was Mark Dreyfus, the current Attorney General, QC. So there's a long history here of fighting for Aboriginal rights in the Northern Territory. Today we are at a real turning point. Through those early struggles and support from our allies over many years, 50 years, the land claim era is almost at an end. And in March this year, along with my chairman, Samuel Bush-Blanazi, I had the privilege of attending 3 handover ceremonies in one day with former Minister Ken Wyatt. And we had 2 at Mataranka and at the old Elsie station for people who know the area, and the township of Yurapunga. And then we had one in the afternoon at Kawinda for the remaining half of the Kakadu National Park, handed back to 13 clan groups. And the celebration that afternoon with those 13 clan groups was fantastic, and future everyone there from newborn children right through to their great-grandparents. So it was an awesome day. But now it's about turning to economic development, but only on Aboriginal people's terms, and only about caring for country. And the NLC core business is supporting traditional owners. We've got 80 traditional owners on our council, and trust me, they have a lot of agency. I'm covered in scar tissue, but you can't see it. They are absolutely the bosses, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The NLC core business is about supporting the aspirations of traditional owners, and we have a significant population base of 51,000 or so people just in the Northern Land Council area, and almost 2/3 of those people live outside of the major towns like Darwin and Katherine. So our constituents are still very much on country and looking after their land and wanting to develop a future for their children and grandchildren. I've already touched on Aboriginal people are the majority owners of land and sea country in the top end of the Northern Territory. Here's approximately 55% of the NT land mass is Aboriginal owned under the Aboriginal Land Rights Act and or native title. And about 3/4 of the coastline is under Aboriginal control, and this will rise to over 90% soon as a benefit of the fight for the Blue Mud Bay case in the High Court, and which we won. From there, we thought you could build a model for economic innovation. There's no point winning these fights unless there's a plan for the future. And this plan includes the establishment of an Aboriginal sea company, which is the shareholders are the 3 sea land councils, Anadili-Akara, Tubi Land Council and Northern Land Council. Central were going to come in, Central Land Council, but it was hard to justify. Where's Sally? She's another scary woman, but yeah, sorry, Sally. So anyway, we got 3 sea councils, and the challenge is, how do we make up the most of this opportunity while ensuring each group of traditional owners make their own decisions? And the answer is in the establishment of this company. We got some really good legal advice on how to create a structure where no one group can control another group and everyone's equal at the table. And but we've also got independent directors who are experts from industry and finance world, but the majority will always stay Aboriginal community controlled. We're also developing sea country management plans, and this will be backed by legislation. So we're working with the Northern Territory government officials, and I've got to say they've been on board, pardon the pun, but where else would you be? Yeah, they've got to be with us because we've got a history of beating them. As the NLC chairman said, following the inaugural board meeting in April this year, the ASC will be good for traditional owners and good for the economy. So this is not about excluding anyone at all. This will be about an economic initiative that'll lift all boats, and that'll mean too that non-Indigenous interests from overseas, interstate and local will all be able to benefit in some way. I just want to turn now to free, prior and informed consent. The NLC priority is ensuring TO decisions, or traditional owner decisions, are based on the principle of free, prior and informed consent. We were doing this before there was a UN declaration on the rights of Indigenous people. It's something that was written into the Aboriginal Land Rights Act in 1976 when it was enacted, but Gough Whitlam in the Labor Party first proposed it in 1974, and Malcolm Fraser steered the legislation through in 1976. So informed consent, it's always been at the heart of what we do. And when proposals come to traditional owners under the Aboriginal Land Rights Act, they have what's known as a veto. It's very powerful. They can say no, and we'll take a proposal to them. We'll bring in expert advice from agencies like CSIRO and others, and if the TOs aren't convinced, they'll say no. And then that includes mining too on Aboriginal freehold land. Native titles, as you all know, is a different story. It's not as strong as Aboriginal Land Rights Act in the Northern Territory. Because we've always believed that self-determination is the right to say no. And when it comes to these activities that we have where we take proposals from big business, the Northern Land Council is neutral. When I say Northern Land Council, I mean staff. We take it out, and then traditional owners will say yes or no, or even sometime maybe. Come back later with more information. And so that's all things like tourism, agriculture, even the recent launching of the rockets into space. I want to acknowledge Jawa Yunupingu. He went on public record and said that it wouldn't have been possible without the Northern Land Council. I was incredibly proud of the staff who work in East Arnhem, like Emma, Craig, and all the other people out here who made that possible. Also, there's carbon farming, which is something the Northern Land Council's been involved in for many years through our famous savanna burning in cool parts of the year, saving absolutely tons of carbon going into the atmosphere. Mining, of course, traditional owners can choose to do mining or not, or even mine themselves. It's their decision. And then lastly, but probably the most important, is about caring for country, including sacred sites, keeping out feral animals and weeds and so on. I've just realised we've got a pretty big panel here, so I'll go a bit quicker. Land use agreements. People say that, land rights, it locks up country. Most of you know that that's not true. We've got over 914 land use agreements on foot as we speak, and we've got more in the pipeline. Last financial year, we're just putting together our annual report, and I saw the data come in. We conducted over 400 meetings on country involving 6,500 people, and so that's where a lot of our resources, time, energy goes into having on-country meetings with your countrymen and women for them to understand what's going on, what's before them, before they can make a decision on what happens on their country. I just want to turn to Aboriginal land, about giving confidence and certainty. These are essential for economic activity. You know that it's very difficult to get finance of any description while there's uncertainty. Financial institutions, do like to take comfort, and when I first heard that, I didn't know what it meant. I thought, a pillow, but what are you looking for? But they just wanted absolute certainty that they were going to not have their money at risk. So that's what we've been able to do. But it's a two-way street. We heard yesterday about people being let down all the time, and we heard one speaker ask a question this morning about why aren't we talking about the amount of times people have been lied to. So that's where we want confidence that what's coming to us is serious, and that we're not going to get mucked around. And today we can't be confident when we're being undermined by government. At the moment in Kakadu National Park, the Commonwealth damaged a sacred site called Gulkula a couple of years ago, and they were prosecuted by the Northern Territory government agency called Aboriginal Area Protection Authority, or ARPA. And instead of the Commonwealth conceding, they'd made a mistake and facing up to it, they took the territory government to court, said that the laws didn't apply to them. And so we were really disappointed, and we made that known to the Commonwealth at the time. We weren't listened to, but this time now there's change of government. We'll be making representation again to get the Commonwealth to withdraw from fighting this wrong that they clearly did. And they've admitted to it, but they said they can't be prosecuted. So we want to go to court and, we want the Commonwealth to withdraw. And just in the last few weeks, you've probably been reading that they've been showing an appetite to withdraw from cases that the previous government, got themselves involved in. Just one thing before I sit down is having confidence about economic development means caring for country, sacred sites not being destroyed, people being listened to, people being respected. And one of those initiatives that we've got at the Northern Land Council is our ranger program. It's called Caring for Country, and really pleased to say that the Commonwealth and the territory government have contributed money for a long time, but more importantly, Aboriginal people are putting in their own royalties into looking after their country. So it's been a great partnership that way. And I just want to make one last point, and that's about we really do want to see more economic development on Aboriginal people's terms, but I was at a meeting recently where someone said, this Aboriginal person said, we're open for business, but it's got to be on our terms. So, fair enough. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.